Playing detective and investigating further, my soon-to-be ex-wife soon realized I was onto her. She probably thought I had found evidence from the doorbell camera she deleted. However, faced with my growing suspicion, she ultimately confessed to an ongoing affair that had lasted about a year, coinciding with the period I spent caring for my elderly parent. She even suggested paying alimony for a while. We share most of the debt, and the sale of the house should cover it, leaving a bit for each of us to start over. It's a disheartening and unfair situation. Admittedly, I felt anger and a desire for revenge. But there weren't many people to expose her to those who would care. And on the other person's side, he's single, divorced, and surprisingly more informed about my marriage than I was. Their relationship isn't close, and it's likely not her first affair. Despite my urge for revenge, I let it go, not wanting to seek more pain. This situation arrives at a crucial time as I deal with elder care issues. I lack the energy or desire to fight. The revelation of her infidelity has left me too exhausted. She offered to fix things, but we both know there's too much pain and wrong between us. I'm still reeling from being cheated on over 25 years ago. Some scars never fully heal. I've recently wondered if my entire relationship was just a rebound. I'm a committed person, but perhaps I committed too soon. Now, trusting anyone again seems impossible. So, there's no confrontation, no revenge, no exposure, just two lives torn apart. Now, I must rebuild myself, leaving behind my pride and ego. It feels like another failure in a long list. Life as I knew it is over, and I'm just going through the motions to handle the necessities. I don't want to go home, but I have to pack and prepare the house for sale. Then I need to find an apartment, and I don't even know where I want to live. It's all just incredibly overwhelming and disappointing. I've come to realize that I spent over half my life with someone who wasn't right for me. The silver lining in this situation is that we didn't have children, meaning that post-divorce, I won't need to maintain contact with her. Yet, it's going to take time to fully move on. Every time I hear her voice, the old pain resurfaces. Now, feeling old and broken, it seems like I don't deserve this kind of life devoid of hopes or dreams, just alone with my thoughts. More thoughts from last night. She hasn't called or texted since I left. I did tell her not to, and I meant it, but not even a simple apology or a message to check if I'm okay. Is she just sitting at home like it's any other day? I recall our conversation during the Christmas before last about our dead bedroom phase. About 10 to 15 years ago, we went through several failed IVF attempts, and the fear of another loss made me distance myself from intimacy. I never discussed it with her, thinking it wasn't the right time. Maybe she blames me for our years of distance. Maybe it's all my fault. In a moment of weakness, I called her, against my better judgment. The act of reaching out, even in such a small way, reflects the turmoil and confusion I'm feeling, grappling with the complexities of our shared past and my own part in our unraveling relationship. In a moment of reflection, I apologized to my wife over the phone for the hurtful things I had said. It wasn't true, and I admitted it. Recognizing that our relationship was over, I suggested we handle the situation like the mature adults in our 50s we are, not like the 20-somethings we were when we first met. I expressed hope that she finds what she's looking for and left it at that. Last night, she called me back. She appreciated my apology and understood that my hurtful words were spoken in pain. We didn't delve into much, except for her apologizing again. I informed her that I would be coming home for the weekend and needed her not to be there. I suggested she might stay with her boyfriend since that was her choice anyway. She denied it, insisting she wanted me back and that we could work things out, even asking for another chance. The thought of going back to any other time, even the worst times of our relationship, crossed my mind, but I remained firm. I told her I couldn't see us being together now. It's been a year, and I can't imagine feeling the same way about her. The only question I asked was how many times the affair had occurred. After a long silence, she finally answered, admitting it was a few times at first, then nearly every day when I was away, and some weekends she claimed to be at the gym. This went on for about 6 months, and in the last few months, it happened once or twice a week while I was away. Hearing this, I was overwhelmed with sickness and muted the call to let out some of the pain. It struck me that she had been with him more times in a year than we had been together in the past 10 to 15 years. I considered asking more questions if he was better, if he was more satisfying, what they did, but I was too hurt and ashamed. I just couldn't take any more. I told her to go to him this weekend so that I could be alone at home to gather more of my important belongings. With no permanent place in mind for myself, I was left to navigate this new and painful reality alone. I've been up for a while now, having spent the night with a bottle of good scotch, and now I face the day with a hangover. Despite this, I have work to do and my parent to care for, as we had previously agreed. I'm back at the house to collect some items. Thankfully, she's not here. I quickly start packing clothes and documents I forgot the last time, determined to keep moving and not let my emotions weigh me down. As I'm in the basement packing up a few things, I hear water running through the pipes. It goes on for a while before I realize it's coming from upstairs. I head up and hear the shower. I'm stunned. Making a quick decision, I brew some coffee and then step out to my car, sitting in the driveway, contemplating driving away. Instead, I just sit there stunned. I start drafting a harsh text to her but decide against sending it, choosing to wait for her to leave. Outside, having a smoke, I meet my new neighbor. I keep the conversation light, not divulging anything about my current situation. As we part ways, my wife appears from the garage, wanting to talk. I ask her why she's here. She explains she couldn't check into her new place until later and thought it wouldn't be a problem to shower and grab a few more things, assuming I wouldn't be around. I'm left wondering who this person is standing in front of me. After a brief and awkward apology from her part and a suggestion for more counseling, I look her in the eye and firmly say no. I tell her to leave. She agreed to stay away, and I have things to do. I reiterate that this situation is her doing and return to the basement. Here I am, typing this, trying to control my emotions and blood pressure. I hear the garage door open and close, signaling her departure. I'm a bit of a mess, wanting to get back to packing, but my bourbon collection is tempting me. I already had one drink earlier, and I know another this early will only make the day worse. Sunday arrives after another sleepless night filled with packing and anguish. Everything was tough. The memories, pictures, items we chose together, our wedding album, all stirring up more emotions, which I tried to control. Despite the difficulty, I persevere, focusing on the things that matter to me. Unfortunately, one item brings me the most pain, the sealed urn containing our children's ashes. We had planned to. The discovery of the urn containing our children's ashes brought forth a flood of emotions. We had planned to combine our ashes and have them scattered in the ocean near our favorite beach after one or both of us passed. Now, that plan seemed irrelevant. The dilemma I faced was whether it was wrong to want to keep the urn with me. This was a conversation I would eventually need to have with her, but I was apprehensive about how it would go. The idea of dividing the ashes felt disrespectful, as if neither of us would truly possess them. I planned to consult my attorney about it once I retained one. On Sunday evening, as I nearly finished packing the essentials I would take with me, including some important keepsakes and documents, I was determined to have enough so that I wouldn't need to return for a few weeks. We had agreed she would return after 9 p.m., and I preferred not to be there when she did. Resisting the urge to dismantle the electronics out of spite, I managed to feel like the bigger person, thanks to supportive calls from a friend and some direct messages. Around 7 p.m., as I loaded the last of my belongings into my car, she unexpectedly showed up, looking somewhat shaken. She asked if we could talk before I left. Despite feeling frustrated by her presence, I tried to maintain composure, stating I had limited time before I needed to help with my parent for the weekend. She said she understood but wanted me to know about her weekend. She claimed to have spent it alone, though I wasn't sure I believed her. She expressed that she knew I couldn't forgive what she had done but insisted that she still loved and would always be in love with me. She confessed her anger at herself for hurting me and destroying the only man who ever loved her unconditionally. As I stood there, attempting to maintain an indifferent facade, my emotions betrayed me. Despite my efforts, they fell, though I chose not to speak. I decided to listen, hoping to leave after she had said her piece. She spoke of many things, her reasons and justifications for her actions, her inability to stop herself, and her belief that I didn't or wouldn't care. She talked about wanting to confess many times but knowing I could never accept it. At every turn, she admitted the fault was entirely hers, not mine. She expressed her intention to seek counseling to understand why she behaved this way for so long. Despite having everything she wanted, she felt our life had crumbled because she believed we could live without closeness, a decision she now regretted. She even said I could be with other people if I wanted, a typical reaction of someone who had cheated. She revealed that during our conversation 2 Christmases ago, she became upset when I expressed my fear of getting her pregnant again. She saw my concerns about pregnancy as excuses, thinking I never truly wanted her or a family, especially when I resisted the idea of adopting. She admitted that these thoughts made her grow increasingly upset. As I listened to her, I was awash in a mixture of emotions, trying to process her words. Her confession and the reasons behind her actions left me feeling a profound mix of sadness, disbelief, and a sense of resignation about the state of our relationship. It was clear that a complex web of feelings and misunderstandings had led us to this point, making the path ahead uncertain and fraught with emotional challenges. Listening to her speak, I tried to process the avalanche of emotions and justifications she laid out. She expressed that every day she felt the absence of closeness and family in our lives, things she believed I had withheld from her. Her anger stemmed from the belief that I blamed her for our children's loss and that I was disgusted by her for it, a resentment she felt lingered despite the years. She thought she loved me enough for both of us, but when my parents' health deteriorated, she saw it as an excuse for me to stay away. She just wanted to feel loved and believed I hadn't been honest about my feelings. The gym guy, as she referred to him, wasn't even a consideration until these realizations hit her. She insisted that her infidelity was initially out of spite and later a longing for closeness, although she kept telling him it was only physical. She admitted to developing a connection with him, sharing feelings she hadn't experienced in years, yet claimed it was nothing compared to what we had shared. She hoped for my forgiveness, wanting us to talk again to find a way forward, even if it meant splitting up. She asked for time before considering divorce, arguing that I had been dishonest for years and should give her the chance she believed she deserved. At that point, I couldn't contain my emotions. "You deserve a chance after a year of cheating?" I exclaimed. I reminded her that my past fears, shared in therapy, were never brought up again to avoid this very situation. In recent years, I had tried to be more engaged, romantic, and connected, but her response was minimal. Opening up about my deepest secret was meant to bring us closer, but she used it as a pretext for her affair, devastating my life. I felt so broken that I considered ending everything, unable to grasp the enormity of her betrayal. The conversation left me overwhelmed, torn between the hurt of the past and the uncertainty of the future. Confronting the painful reality of our situation, I found myself grappling with intense emotions. She admitted to also having thoughts of ending things but claimed she couldn't bring herself to do that to me. In a burst of frustration, I yelled, "But you can do this to me for a year?" After calming down, I realized that I could never again be open and vulnerable with her, or anyone for that matter. The way she used my fears, weaknesses, and honesty against me had irrevocably changed me. Reflecting on everything she said about how and when the affair happened, I still struggled to believe her claim that this was her first indiscretion. I was already running late from my planned departure, and I knew I had to hurry on the highway, though my mind was anything but focused. As I left, I told her I would ponder what she said and call her if I had more to discuss. However, during the drive, all I could manage was to blast loud music and cry, overwhelmed by pain. The realization that my actions might have contributed to this situation made the journey even more agonizing than the first one after discovering the affair. Eventually, I didn't call her. Now, in the cold light of day, I'm left questioning not only how I might have caused this but also if there's even a remote chance she's seen my posts and is using them against me. She isn't active on social media, and I doubt she uses Reddit, so it seemed unlikely. I also find myself reflecting on my naivety in letting my guard down, thinking some things should never be shared. If I had kept everything to myself, maybe I wouldn't be in this situation. I consider this a form of karma, as I was contemplating leaving last fall. Now, I feel like I'm operating on autopilot, and this incident has confirmed that I should always maintain the facade of being happy and never let my guard down again. It feels like I've ruined everything I had. I'm still consulting with my attorney and trying to stay on course, unsure of how I could ever return to her after this. The truth is, she has reopened old wounds and torn away everything I was clinging to for stability. Lee, I sent an email via her work account to inform my ex-partner, referred to here as, that I had hired legal representation and requested contact information for their legal counsel. In her response, expressed a desire to discuss the situation further and offered an apology, acknowledging that they couldn't fathom the depth of my feelings. Admitted not deserving a chance for a conversation but suggested that time might help in calming things down. Showed an understanding that my opinion of them was probably higher than they deserved and proposed discussing counseling and personal matters through text or a call, rather than via work email. In my reply, I informed that I would be busy with work and dealing with my parents' move but would use their personal email for further communication regarding this matter. Expressed gratitude and asked me to consider their words. They conveyed concern for my well-being, acknowledging the loneliness I might be facing, and inquired about well-being during the move. Amidst this, I realized the gravity of what my parent is going through, losing their home of over 50 years and all its memories as they move into a care facility. I pondered how a person with dementia feels being moved, having to be reminded nearly every day, and experiencing the emotional toll repeatedly. I've been trying to handle the situation as gently as possible, sorting through things to determine what really wants to keep. Reflecting more on the exchange with, the mention of not sending personal matters through work email struck me. At first, I thought it made sense, but then I realized she might have been using her work phone for our communications. Her personal phone is always clean, and I had updated it for her new watch last Christmas, although I could have still missed something. In a recent update, I found a temporary place to stay with a friend close to work. While I initially considered renting, this arrangement provides me some respite as I navigate through these tumultuous times, offering a semblance of stability in the midst of upheaval. Recently, I found a temporary living arrangement with a friend, which is working out well for now, allowing me to delay the immediate need to rent an apartment. Moving on to recent developments, I served my wife with divorce papers, to which she responded contentiously through her attorney. Not long after, I had to address a maintenance issue at my old home. It was significant enough to need immediate attention, so I met with a contractor to handle it. I hoped to finish the work before my wife returned, as I preferred to avoid any encounter. It took several hours, but I managed to resolve the issue. However, later that day, I received a call from a doctor informing me that my wife had been admitted to the hospital. As her emergency contact and still her husband, it wasn't entirely unexpected. She had called an ambulance, fearing a heart attack, but it turned out to be a panic attack. She was admitted for observation after expressing persistent, troubling thoughts. Given her history of mental health care and a chronic health condition, I've always been there for her, offering support in any way I could. Despite my mixed feelings and awareness of how some might use such situations manipulatively, I still cared about her well-being and didn't want her to harm herself or struggle more in the future. After consulting with my friend and my attorney, who advised caution during any visits, I decided to see her. They warned me not to make promises or say anything that could be used against me. While I'm aware that threats of self-harm can be a manipulation tactic, her past suggests that this could be a genuine crisis. I understand that I shouldn't let her actions hinder my progress or moving forward with my life. Yet, there's a part of me that feels compelled to be there for her despite the frustration of these conflicting feelings and wishing none of this had happened. I've tried to be firm with her, but seeing her in such a state could potentially set me back. I can't just abandon her, as it goes against my nature. She really didn't have anyone else. Her only close friend lived far away and was grappling with her own serious health issues. So, I decided to visit her in the hospital. When I arrived, she was asleep, connected to an IV and various monitors. As I watched her, memories of the peaceful moments we shared flooded back. The person I once longed for lay there, a stark contrast to the tumultuous reality we now faced. She was surprised to see me when she woke up, pleading for a hug and forgiveness. I maintained my composure, ensuring her that I was there out of concern for her well-being, not to discuss our relationship. It was a civil interaction, though she was visibly emotional. During our conversation, she revealed another startling piece of news. A recent visit to her gynecologist for sexually transmitted disease tests had led to a discovery: she was diagnosed with aggressive ovarian cancer. Stepping out of the room to gather my thoughts, I wrestled with a whirlwind of emotions. This kind of cancer often carried a grim prognosis, and I needed a moment to process it. When I returned, we talked at length. Despite my conflicting emotions, I agreed to support her in whatever way I could, making it clear it wasn't about rekindling our relationship. I believed she would have done the same for me if our roles were reversed, though I couldn't be certain. Her recent panic attack, it turned out, was triggered by receiving this diagnosis coupled with the stress of her birthday, which I had ignored, and being served with divorce papers all in the same week. It was a perfect storm of crises converging on her life. She felt overwhelmed, contemplating whether it would be easier to give up than to fight the disease and the emotional turmoil alone. She even considered the financial implications for me, suggesting that her life insurance and leaving me the house debt-free could be a fresh start for me. In our conversation, I made it clear that what I truly wished for was for her to fight this disease with everything she had. It was a complex, emotionally charged situation, where compassion and past grievances intersected, leaving me to navigate a path that balanced empathy with the need to protect my own emotional well-being. Lately, my life has been a whirlwind, traveling across highways for work, visiting my parent, the hospital, my friend's place, and returning to my old home to collect more of her belongings. She has been moved to a regular hospital room now, as her doctors believe she's no longer a danger to herself. We've been undergoing more tests, and today, we're awaiting precise results regarding the stage of her condition. Preliminary exams suggest it's at least stage preliminary exams or higher. If it's not stage 4, we might have a manageable situation, but if it is, we're looking at a tough and possibly shortened journey ahead. I'm writing this from the hospital cafeteria, waiting for more information from the oncology department. Being someone who naturally helps others, I find myself being the strong one once again, trying to stay optimistic despite my inherent pessimism. The most significant update involves the possibility of major emergency surgery and chemotherapy followed by a period of care. I've committed to being there for her through the surgery, chemo, and recovery in the best-case scenario. While I haven't explicitly said I'd move in and stay with her, that might become necessary. However, my stance on divorce remains unchanged. I've spoken to my lawyer about the legal implications and the possibility of an in-house separation under certain conditions. Another concern is avoiding being liable for part of her medical debt, which might delay our divorce proceedings. My lawyer mentioned amending our settlement agreement, but she would need to agree that I'm not responsible for these costs. So, is there a chance I can care for her through this, avoid an emotional reconnection, and still move forward with my life? Regardless of how this unfolds, it's a balancing act. For those interested in an update, I finally met with the doctors. It's confirmed as stage preliminary exams cancer, and it has spread, but the tumors are still small and haven't reached the bladder or other major organs. This news brings a mix of relief and apprehension as we brace for the next steps in her treatment and care. In the midst of this tumultuous time, I found myself shuttling between work, visiting my parent, the hospital, my friend's place, and now returning to my old home to gather more of her belongings. Her doctors have moved her to a regular room, believing she's no longer a danger to herself. We're currently awaiting precise results on the stage of her ovarian cancer. Preliminary exams suggest it's at least stage preliminary exams or higher. If it's not stage 4, there might be a chance to manage, but if it is, we're facing a tough road ahead. I'm writing this from the hospital cafeteria, waiting for more information from the oncology department. If her actions hadn't pushed me away, I'd be a wreck, but even in private, I've been holding it together, trying to stay optimistic against my natural pessimism. The potential treatment plan, in the best-case scenario, involves major emergency surgery and chemotherapy followed by a period of care. I've committed to being there for her through surgery, chemo, and recovery. Although I haven't explicitly said I'd move back in with her, it might become necessary for in-house separation to assist her. My stance on divorce remains unchanged, and I've consulted my lawyer about the legal implications. They've confirmed we can still be considered separated under certain conditions, as long as we don't share a bed. We also need an agreement that she won't make the divorce process more difficult, a condition of my support. While I feel guilty, as if I'm bargaining with her life, I recognize we all have our limits. She'll undergo surgery soon for additional biopsies and a major operation. The treatment plan is aggressive, but necessary to stop the cancer's spread. Ironically, her infidelity may have inadvertently saved her life, as the cancer was discovered during her sexually transmitted disease tests. It's a bittersweet realization that in this dire situation, someone gets a win. Update: I've been in the hospital with my wife since yesterday morning. She's in critical condition. During surgery, complications arose due to uncontrollable blood pressure, and while the surgeon removed a significant amount of cancer, not all of it could be safely extracted. She suffered a seizure, causing additional damage and bleeding, leading to another surgery despite the risks. Recently, amid crisscrossing highways for work, visiting my parent, the hospital, and returning to my old home for more of her belongings, I've been trying to manage a challenging situation. My wife has been moved to a regular hospital room as doctors believe she's no longer a danger to herself. More tests were conducted, and we were expecting precise results on the stage of her condition, with preliminary exams suggesting at least stage preliminary exams or higher. The possibility of ovarian cancer not spreading to distant organs like the liver gives some hope, but the prognosis remains uncertain. I had resolved to support her in her battle, regardless of her past actions. I couldn't be the detached person I thought I could be or what some might suggest. I decided to continue with the separation and divorce, but likely move back in for in-house separation to assist her for a while. My attorney and I discussed this plan, agreeing we can still consider any time spent there as separated provided we don't share a bed. We also need an agreement that she won't contest the divorce process. She's due for surgery in the next few days for additional biopsies and a major operation. The treatment plan is aggressive, but necessary to stop the spread. I've committed to being there for her through surgery, chemo, and recovery. In the hospital cafeteria, I learned her cancer is stage preliminary exams and has spread, but the tumors are small and haven't reached critical organs. Her cheating may have inadvertently led to the early discovery of her cancer. Yesterday, she was in critical condition during surgery due to uncontrollable blood pressure. The surgeon removed a significant amount of cancer, but not all of it. Last night, she had a seizure, causing additional damage and leading to another surgery. She's been in and out of consciousness, and doctors are doing everything possible to prevent a stroke. While waiting for her initial surgery, I used her work phone and saw a message from her affair partner. She referred to him as the biggest mistake of her life and stated she would never be in touch or see him again. I don't take this as anything significant, as it was not something she admitted to me. I went through her work emails and personal accounts, finding nothing suspicious before last year. Whether she lives or dies, or if we ever have the chance to talk about it, it doesn't really matter anymore. My primary focus now is to provide her with support and hope for the best, while naturally expecting the worst. The best I can hope for is some actual sleep before the weekend. Here's the latest update on my challenging situation regarding my wife's health. Her condition has been fluctuating, mostly for the worse, with the medical team suspecting a small stroke. However, there's been slight improvement over the weekend, offering a glimmer of hope amidst the uncertainty. While she's not yet out of danger, doctors are cautiously optimistic. Despite experiencing a lot of pain and being on strong medications, she's been conscious more frequently. She's been moved from intensive care and is expected to undergo rehab before returning home on Thursday. Amidst this, my wife's best friend, Mem, reached out to me. Despite not being in touch since the ordeal began, I assumed she was supporting my wife. I left her a voicemail on the night of my wife's first surgery, updating her on the critical situation. Recognizing the urgency, I suggested she visit soon, not knowing what the future held. Though Mem and I weren't particularly close, she and my wife shared a long-standing friendship since their teenage years. We spent holidays and vacations together, so her call expressing sympathy and a desire to visit my wife on Thursday was not unexpected. I agreed to her stay at the house, despite the emotional discomfort it brings me. During the drive to the hospital, Mem revealed something surprising. She had only recently learned about our situation, with my wife disclosing everything just before her initial hospitalization. This revelation included the news of cancer and legal troubles. Their communication had waned over the past year, which Mem attributed to my wife's struggles with hearing about Mem's own medical issues and the fear of losing her best friend. Even more shocking was Mem's disclosure about sharing suspicions of her husband's infidelity with my wife. Despite working through it, Mem believed it was merely emotional, as her husband had a crush on a colleague but didn't act on it. She had advised my wife on handling the situation, including seeking marriage counseling and setting boundaries. Mem expressed her hurt and anger, indicating doubts about the future of their friendship due to feeling deceived by my wife. This unexpected revelation left me reeling, realizing the complexities beneath the surface of my wife's relationships and the challenges we face ahead. Because Mem is not someone who usually curses, she's pretty religious and straightforward. Mem mentioned that my wife had called her a few times afterward, but she had ignored the calls, thinking I was trying to involve her more. When she heard my message, she knew she couldn't go without seeing my wife again if the worst happened and didn't want it to be their last words. So, she called me to arrange a visit. We spent a lot of time together this weekend, not in any inappropriate way, but she shared more insights after visiting my wife. We talked almost every night until very late, and it was nice because she never pressured me to stay together after each visit. She seemed more lenient on her last night. She surprised me by revealing that my wife had asked her to discuss do not resuscitate and other end-of-life matters with me. My wife wasn't sure if, in the worst-case scenario, I could take her off life support if her condition worsened. She expressed a desire to end her life to avoid more suffering or living with severe disabilities. My wife asked Mem to convince me to let her go if the time came and I reached out or couldn't cope with the outcome. I'm unsure about the legal circumstances other than being brain dead. I plan to talk to her about this tonight, but I'm uncertain about what to say. Personally, I don't believe in keeping people alive if they are suffering, and I might do the right thing in the appropriate circumstance. However, I can't commit to anything beyond that, and I worry I might be influenced by my own desire to be done with this. Even in the right medical scenario, I think I would carry a lot of guilt forever. I'll also discuss this with my therapist, though my appointment isn't until later in the week. I asked her friend Mem if she would consider assuming medical power of attorney over my wife before she left, and she is thinking about it. I will also approach one of my close relatives, though they live far away, and I can't guarantee their involvement. I'm adamant about making only legal decisions. I briefly talked to my lawyer, and we have a meeting scheduled for tomorrow. However, tonight I will tell my wife that I understand her wishes, but I can't agree to them at this time.